This happened back in the summer of 2021. I had decided to take a solo hike on a trail I'd read about online. Remote, off the map, far from the usual crowds. I parked my car at the trailhead around 9:45 a.m., tightened my boots, and slung my backpack over my shoulders. The morning was quiet, warm, but not stifling. Sunlight spilled through the trees in uneven patches. For the first 30 minutes, it felt normal. Boots crunching on fallen leaves. A few birds calling from high branches. The familiar calm of being alone in the woods. Nothing out of place. No one else on the trail. Just me. And the trees stretching endlessly in every direction. Then I heard it. A soft, uneven crunch of footsteps. Not behind me. Not ahead. Somewhere on a side trail, hidden from view. I paused, stomach tightening. Maybe another hiker? It didn't sound like an animal. I strained my ears. The steps stopped almost immediately. I shook my head, kept walking, but my pace had changed. My senses were sharper. Every shadow, every branch seemed heavier. About 20 minutes later, I saw her. A girl, maybe 16 or 17, standing on the trail about 50 feet ahead. No backpack, no water bottle, nothing. Just a thin t-shirt and jeans. She waved lightly. "Hey," she said, smiling softly. "I'm hiking too." I nodded. Tried to keep it casual. It was unusual, someone hiking alone without any gear, but maybe just a short walk. We fell in a step together. At first, easy conversation. Her voice light, her steps quiet. But then I noticed it. She kept glancing over her shoulder, constantly, like she was expecting someone. I asked casually, "Are you okay? Someone following you?" She laughed nervously. "No, just making sure I'm not lost." Something didn't feel right. My gut tightened. The woods around us felt heavier with every step, the light dimming slightly as the sun shifted behind thick branches. Little things started to appear, a snapped twig to the right, a branch recently broken, footprints in the dirt that didn't match ours. "Want to take a shortcut?" she asked, pointing down a narrow path that led deeper into the trees. I hesitated. My mind raced. Could she be leading me somewhere? Or was it really just a trail? Thoughts jumped to worst-case scenarios. People getting trapped. Hikers disappearing. News stories about attacks on isolated trails came back to me. A girl her age could be lost. Or she could be the lure. I said, "Actually, I think I need to head back soon. I have to check on something." She tilted her head, studying me. Smile faint, but eyes sharp. "Okay. Are you sure?" "Yes," I said quickly, forcing my voice steady. Heart pounding. Every step back, toward the main trail, felt heavier. My body tense, legs stiff, adrenaline spiking. Every shadow I passed seemed to twitch. Every distant rustle made me flinch. She didn't follow at first, just watched. Then, after a moment, she started walking behind me. Not close, not threatening, but close enough to feel her presence. Something crawling just outside my peripheral vision. My mind ran through possibilities. Maybe she was trying to scare me. Maybe she wasn't alone. Maybe she was bait. I sped up, made an excuse about needing to reach my car before lunch. She smiled faintly, didn't say anything. Let me go. My pace increased, practically jogging, adrenaline pushing me forward, heart hammering so loud I could barely hear the forest. Every snap of a twig, every distant bird call, amplified, threatening. Finally, I reached the main trail. She was gone. No sign of her anywhere. The weight in my chest didn't lift. I kept moving, checking behind me every few steps. The woods looked empty, peaceful, normal again. But I couldn't shake the feeling. She was still there, waiting for someone. Or maybe she was the trap herself. I didn't stop until my car was in sight. I jumped in, locked the doors, sat there, tried to calm down, hands shaking, mind running through everything. The way she looked, the way she led me down that narrow path. Shadows that didn't belong. The possibilities worse than any single fear. I never saw her again. I haven't gone back to that trail. Sometimes, when I think of that day, I can almost hear her voice in my ear, smiling, asking me to follow. I couldn't believe how quickly a fun camping trip turned into the kind of nightmare you only hear about in warnings. This happened back in the summer of 2021. My friend Jake and I decided to explore a small town his father had to visit for some paperwork. It was his late grandpa's hometown, surrounded by dense, dark woods. The kind of place where sunlight barely reached the forest floor. Before leaving, Jake's father had warned him, "Don't go into the deep woods. That place, it's cursed or hunted. People who wander too far sometimes don't come back." Of course, we laughed it off. Just old stories, right? But that day, Jake's father had to leave town for only a few hours. That was all it took for us to plan our secret adventure. We packed a couple of cameras, snacks, a flashlight, promising ourselves we'd be careful. The trail into the deep woods was narrow, unmarked, the trees thick and heavy. At first, it was peaceful. Birds chirped faintly. The air smelled damp, earthy. We joked around, pretending to be YouTubers, filming vlogs, whispering to the camera, making faces, laughing at how spooky the woods felt. After about an hour of walking, we stumbled across something that made us freeze. A graveyard. Very old. The stones cracked, covered in moss. Wooden crosses leaned at impossible angles, some barely hanging onto the ground. It wasn't fenced off. The forest just seemed to swallow it. Most people would have left immediately. Not us. We couldn't resist. We started taking photos, acting like it was part of vlog. We joked about haunted cemeteries, spooky stories, even posed with the oldest graves. The air felt heavier here, the sun dimmer. That's when we first heard it. Footsteps. Fast, running, coming from deeper in the trees behind us. We froze, cameras still in hand. Maybe an animal. Jake whispered, but it didn't sound like an animal. The rhythm, the pounding, it was human. We decided to ignore it, pretending we didn't hear, laughing a little too loudly to cover the tension. Then a bell rang. Not once, not far away. The entire graveyard seemed to vibrate with the sound. Clear metal, chilling. We looked around, but there was no one. No wind, no branches snapping, nothing that could have made the sound. A little shaken, we joked about it. Must be one of those old safety bells, Jake said, nervously. That's when I remembered something I had read. In the 1800s, some families worried about being buried alive. They tied a rope from the coffin to a bell above ground. If the person awoke underground, they could ring the bell to alert anyone nearby. Practical, grim, but it actually happened. Some of these graves looked that old. We laughed it off to hide our fear. But then a scream. A single high-pitched, raw scream. Not distant, not muffled. It cut through the forest like a knife. It came from, I don't know, the shadows between the trees, the space between graves. My chest tightened. My stomach flipped. We froze. Cameras in hand, feet rooted. Our laughter had vanished. The forest, the graveyard, the very air around us, suddenly heavy alive. Every instinct told me to run. Jake whispered, maybe it's just someone passing through. But I didn't believe it. The scream didn't sound human. Not completely. And then, silence. Absolute silence. We didn't move for what felt like minutes. Just listening. Eyes darting to every shadow. Every twisted wooden cross. The bell had stopped ringing. The wind still. And yet, something lingered. Watching. Waiting. We didn't want to look directly at the graves anymore. Our cameras forgotten. Every instinct screamed, leave. Finally, we whispered that we had to go. Slowly, carefully, we backed toward the trail, moving as quietly as possible, hearts hammering. Once we reached the edge of the graveyard, we broke into a run. Branches whipped our faces, roots snagged our shoes, but we didn't care. Only when the trees thinned and the town appeared ahead of us did we finally stop. We never returned to that graveyard. Not to finish filming, not to explore, nothing. Later, I told Jake those bells, some of them might have been left from the old safety practice. But I don't think it explains what we heard. 100 years later, the bell should have been silent. And the scream, that wasn't a living person. We never spoke about it much afterward. But sometimes late at night, I can swear I hear the faint toll of a bell. It sends me back to that moss-covered graveyard deep in the woods. Some places aren't meant to be explored, and some warnings aren't meant to be ignored. This happened to me just a few months ago. I've been itching for a solo hike, somewhere no one else went, deep in the woods, off any map, any trail. I wanted complete isolation, fresh air, the sound of my own breathing, no distractions. The first 2 hours were exactly what I hoped for. The forest was quiet, except for the occasional snap of a twig underfoot or a bird flitting between branches. The light filtered through the trees in soft patterns, and I felt calm, almost peaceful. My pack bounced lightly with each step, and I was humming quietly to myself. Then, about halfway into the hike, I saw him. A man, walking toward me on a faint path I hadn't noticed before. He didn't smile, didn't greet me, just stared. He looked dangerous, the kind of person you see in movies and instinctively know to avoid. My heart skipped, but I told myself to ignore it. He wasn't blocking my path. I kept walking. About 30 minutes later, I started feeling it. The creeping sensation that I wasn't alone. Something following. I paused and turned. Nothing. Just the trees, shadows stretching with the fading light. My pulse quickened. I started walking again, faster, glancing behind every few steps. Then I saw him again. The same man, about 50 meters back, keeping pace silently. My stomach dropped. Every instinct screamed danger. I tried to rationalize. Maybe a hiker like me? But the way he moved, deliberately, silently, it didn't feel right. I tried changing my path, cutting through a denser part of the forest, hoping he would miss me. But when I looked back, he followed. Every detour I made, he adjusted his path the same way. That's when fear truly gripped me. This wasn't a coincidence. He was tracking me. Panic set in. My mind raced with possibilities. What if he was a thief? A criminal? Something worse? What if he had a weapon? I imagined the worst. Being cornered in the woods, no one around for miles, screaming and nobody hearing me. I imagined him forcing me into the shadows, robbing me, or worse. My hands were shaking, my breath short and shallow. Then, after what felt like eternity of walking, I spotted it. An old and used cabin, half hidden by overgrown trees and vines. My heart leapt with a mix of hope and fear. I dashed forward, leaving my bag out in the open, then opened the cabin door, letting it creak loudly. I slipped into the shadows near the cabin, crouching behind a large fallen log just outside the window, barely breathing. From my hiding spot, I could see him approach. He didn't hesitate. The man walked straight to the cabin, pushing the door open. My stomach twisted. I imagined all the worst-case scenarios. If I'd been inside the cabin, alone, with him outside, what would have happened? Could he have forced his way in? Could he have waited for me to come out and trap me? Could he have attacked me silently, and I'd never have a chance to scream? My heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted to escape. Every crack of a branch under his step sounded deafening. I could feel the cold sweat running down my back. I had never felt so powerless and alive at the same time. After what felt like forever, he lingered inside, then, eventually, walked away, heading back the way he had come. I waited, barely daring to breathe, until I was sure he was gone. My legs were like lead, but I forced myself to move. Quietly, I retrieved my bag and retraced my steps back toward the path I had come from. The walk back was nerve-wracking. Every shadow, every rustle of leaves made me freeze, imagining him stepping out from nowhere. My hands clutched the straps of my pack. My ears strained for the sound of footsteps, but there was nothing. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was only a tense 20 minutes, I reached my car. I sank into the seat, shaking uncontrollably, and started the engine. The drive back to the main road was silent, except for my ragged breathing. I kept glancing into the rearview mirror, half expecting to see him emerge from the trees. But the road stayed empty, and the sun had started to dip behind the horizon. painting the sky in orange and purple streaks. Even now, thinking about it, I can still feel the weight of those moments, the silent tracking, the cabin, the imagined scenarios of what could have happened. I don't know who that man was or what he intended, but one thing is certain. The forest felt infinitely larger and infinitely more dangerous after that day.